We put all our Thursday night and Monday night talks on our website at mtstream, letter M, letter T, stream.org. So you can browse there under resources, video. You'll see a lot of recent talks from me, Tony Bernhard, John Travis, other people. So my talk tonight is on the natural joy of concentration and how the mind delights as it settles deeply. I think sometimes we forget, unless we have had one of those experiences more recently, that meditation can take us to these delightful places. And especially in concentration, our path, vipassana, or insight meditation, means seeing things as they are. And this is often interpreted to mean that we understand the three universal characteristics of existence, the three, also known as the three marks of existence. The three marks of existence, the things that all of our lives, everything in our lives, how it has these characteristics, the three are suffering, or sometimes defined as unsatisfactoriness. So it ranges in everything from that, things just aren't exactly the way I want them, all the way to the most difficult moments in life where we maybe lose a loved one, where we have terrible grief or illness, or facing death, all the suffering that all human beings face, all the way up to the little unsatisfactoriness of daily life. And the Buddha said, that's a mark of existence. Life is like that. The second one is impermanence. Everything that arises passes away. And unfortunately, or fortunately, that includes us. So that's something for us to deal with. And then the third mark of existence is no self. And probably the most difficult of the three to understand. We all kind of understand suffering. We've all suffered. We all kind of understand impermanence because we see things stop all the time. But the idea of no self is a little more difficult. As Sylvia Boorstein said, 2 out of 3 is not bad when she first heard the 3 marks of existence. So no self has to do with coming to see the self as an illusion, rather than this ego that is dominating everything in our lives. So suffering, impermanence, and no self walk into a bar. You with me? This place is lousy, says suffering. That will change, says impermanence. You talking to me, says no self. I like that. That's your joke for the night. So I want to kind of make some distinctions tonight. Our practice is vipassana. My talk is about concentration. Concentration is different from vipassana. Vipassana is seeing things as they are. But these two practices, vipassana and concentration, are related and they contribute to one another. So let's go on a little journey and explore how that works. Concentration plays a very large role in Buddhist practice, in Buddhist teaching. It's the 8th, the highest maybe, the last fold of the 8-fold path. Wise concentration, samadhi. Pali word for concentration is samadhi. So this Eightfold Path is the most fundamental expression of Buddhist teachings, and here's concentration at the top of that list. You know, concentration predates Buddhism. The Buddha learned concentration from his teachers, who were Hindu teachers. So we've inherited the entire practice of concentration. Whereas Vipassana is a uniquely Buddhist contribution. And some people say that Vipassana, insight, seeing things as they are, is the highest, the greatest expression, the greatest contribution of Buddhism. My point tonight that I want to try to concentrate on is that concentration is often accompanied by joy. I experience this frequently. I get into the zone when I'm writing, and time goes by, and I've got 13 pages, and I don't even know where they came from, and it was just the best time. You probably have experienced this, whatever it is, with whatever it is that you love to do. I do drawing, and I get into the zone, and time goes by, and wonderful things happen. The more I'm in the zone, the more I like the final product, because I'm not thinking about the product, I'm thinking about the process. But that's what makes great products. So it's very pleasurable to have a mind that stays put and is not distracted. I have even heard teachers say that concentration, the joy of concentration, the pleasure of concentration, is the compensation that celibate monks have for as a greater joy than sexual activity. Just an interesting point. And perhaps those sexual energy and the energy of concentration are similar, and so I'm not exactly sure why monks are celibate, but I'm improvising here. So perhaps it's because those energies are so similar that it's recommended to conserve the energy so that one would have it for the practice. I don't know if that's true. I'm making that up, but it makes sense to me. So I always like to start with dictionary definitions. And the dictionary defines concentration as exclusive attention to one object. If we look at the word concentration, con is with in Latin, centrum is center. So it's just like concentric circles, one circle around the next, Concentration is the same roots as concentric. As a matter of fact, I really like the image of concentric circles, and when I sit, if I get deeply concentrated, I've always seen this vision will come to me of concentric circles kind of expanding and new ones starting in the middle, and it's all in colors, and I'm in heaven when I'm seeing that. It's just such a joyous experience. And I wanted to just stop right now and ask you if any of you see or hear anything like that when you do your practice. Teachers say it's not important that you do that, and they don't even really want to hear about it, but it's such a wonderful experience for me. I thought I'd mention it, and I wondered if any of you want to unmute yourself and tell about any experiences that you have. Just speak freely. Marie, are you speaking? Because I can't hear you.
When I get
Susan, great.
Even when I'm just in access concentration, I see colors.
Nice patterns.
Just Colors.
Colors. Wonderful. Anybody else? Well, I'll go on, but do feel free to ask questions or contribute.
I like the idea of the circles. Are you suggesting that it would be possible to, while meditating, imagine colors? Because I visualize lots of things. I have a lot of visualization in my meditations, but I hadn't thought of even trying to do concentric circles as you suggested.
Well, I wasn't suggesting trying. I was just saying it's something that happens. So I'm not sure trying is a good idea. I don't think it's recommended. I think it's just sometimes things will happen. And then, appreciating them, especially if they're beautiful. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So just being open, but I wouldn't try to make anything happen because it'll happen by itself if it's meant to.
Thank you. I realize that. I think I will understand that. Thanks for that response.
Good, good, good. So another definition of concentration from Wikipedia is this: the cognitive process of selectively concentrating on one thing while ignoring other things. So I think that's very interesting. There's something called the cocktail party effect, which is where you're in a room full of noise, but you can tune in the person you're speaking with and tune out all the other sounds. So it's kind of like an audio figure ground relationship. I'm just going to share my screen a moment and talk about figure ground relationships. I'm sure you've all seen this picture. This is the figure ground relationship where you can see the two faces as the figure and the white area in the middle as the ground, the background. Or you can see the white vase as the figure and the two faces as the background. And the reason I bring this up, because this has always been an interesting diagram. You've probably seen it since third grade. But this figure ground relationship is a good picture of concentration because in concentration, we have something in the foreground and you hold the object of your concentration, such as the breath, and then everything else is in the background. And a lot of other things may be happening in the background. There's an inner monologue, there's ideas, there's stories, but they're not grabbing our attention. They stay blurred out in this background. And in the deepest concentration, the background fades and it's just hardly there. William James gave a very famous definition of concentration in 1890. Everyone knows what attention is. It is taking possession by the mind in clear and vivid form of one out of what seems several simultaneously possible objects or trains of thought. It implies withdrawal from some things in order to deal effectively with others. So concentration includes this element of seclusion, where you are concentrating on the object and you're secluded from everything else. We have a lot of cultural conditioning, evolutionary conditioning about what grabs our attention. We're predisposed to notice emergencies so that we survive them. So that means that we're interested in the news. We're interested in crime stories. We rubberneck at car accidents because we are predisposed to pay attention to emergencies or disasters. I use car accidents on the side of the road as a reminder to myself that rather than, because I feel that same old urge to look out and see what's going on, did anybody get hurt? It's kind of it's not the highest level of intention when you're rubbernecking at a car accident. So I try to remember to remind myself instead to bring up metta for the people in the accident and hope that they're safe. So every time I see a car accident, I get that reminder. And someone suggested that to me years ago, and you're welcome to practice it. It's a really nice thing to do. We respond to emergencies. We also respond to anything novel and fast changing. So when you watch the news, you see those headlines going at the bottom of the screen. You see anything that moves and changes, we're watching. It all goes back to the lion in the grass. If it moves, we better pay attention. And our culture is also riddled with all kinds of invitations for a lack of attention because we're overwhelmed with information and inputs. I don't know how many emails you get a day, but I get too many. And it takes up a piece of my day to get through them all. And it's mostly delete, 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 but some of them, you have to look at each one because some are important. And then the web is there. I just looked this up today. The average American household has 11 digital devices. I gave a talk about concentration in 2014, and I think it was 3 back then. So this morning I grabbed my coffee, my Kindle, and my phone and carried them over to the place where I start my day, and we probably did something like that too. We're connected, and we don't feel quite right when we're not connected. The average U.S. consumer now spends 24 hours a week on the internet. It's almost like we don't feel safe if we're not connected. But it's a very disconnected kind of connection, isn't it? Like here we are in Zoom, and we're connected, but we all know that it's not the same as being in the room together. Not quite. 1 in 10 children has attention deficit disorder. This is a real comment about our culture. So we're overstimulated, which increases our anxiety and reduces the joy we feel in our everyday life. You can't feel joy if you're worried and rushing. So how do we recover from a day with too much stimuli? Some days I'll want narcolepsy. I just want to sit in front of the TV and watch anything. I don't care. I have no creative energy. But if I have some energy, I feel so lucky to know that meditation offers an alternative way to disengage from the noise. And this is one of the great benefits that we have from meditation practice. So concentration is a central feature in the life of a meditator. We cultivate it through our formal practice, starting out concentrating on the breath. But we also bring awareness to our daily activities, whatever we're doing, drawing, cooking, music, skiing, research, anything we observe, we try to pay attention. Suppose we're trying to repair a computer, we try to be awake and aware and present, pursuing an art, making a masterful move in a dance, or just quieting the mind. We try to bring this stability and attention. And concentration brings with it this natural joy that arises as the mind settles. The mind becomes unified, and just this absence of distraction is very pleasant. A surgeon may love surgery not so much because the operating room is a great place to be, but because the task at hand demands his complete attention, and the mind is filled with the delight associated with concentration. Whatever it is you do, kayakers, a lot of kayakers experience a lot rapture. Their bodies are cramped up in these little tiny boats and the water's cold, but the sport requires concentration and excludes all distractions. And it can bring a feeling of intense happiness. A concentrated mind is steady, unified, one-pointed, and stable, regardless of uncomfortable or luxurious conditions. One distinction I want to make that is often discussed in Buddhism is shamatha and vipassana. Shamatha means tranquility, and as such includes the concentration practice. Vipassana means seeing things as they are, seeing clearly. And those are different because even though as beginning Vipassana meditators, we start with concentration practice, the object of Vipassana is to have insight. And for us to have insight and to see things as they really are, we have to take in the entire field of reality as our meditation object. It becomes big, not just a candle flame, not just the breath, not just a mantra, not just concentric circles, whatever it is. It's full catastrophe reality. That's what Vipassana wants us to take as the object of our meditation. So that's very different. And yet they work together because we can't do Vipassana unless our mind is settled. So we start with these small things, with the concentration practice, the shamatha, and we develop tranquility, one of the factors of enlightenment. We develop this tranquility, we focus on the foreground. We notice the in-breath, we notice the out-breath. We start so small, we investigate the breath. Is it fast? Is it slow? We just experience it. We experience things. And that's the practice that allows us to gradually expand into this large Vipassana world where we are present to so much and where we are investigating. So talking a little more about the different levels of concentration. I want to cover them a little bit, the traditionally defined levels of concentration. So we start out in a state of preliminary or preparatory concentration. We reach a certain degree of one-pointedness and calm. It's similar to concentrating on everyday life. We may still have stories that arise, planning, reflections, thoughts may proliferate. But as we bring mindfulness, our attention settles more and more in the present moment, and we become steady. Thoughts arise, but we don't chase after them. This is called momentary concentration, and it's the first defined level. Ajahn Chah, a master of the Thai forest tradition, in which tradition John is, and I follow, and you've probably heard a lot of things that came from Ajahn Chah over the years. He compared momentary concentration to taking a walk, resting, walking, resting. The journey is periodically interrupted with the arising of a thought, yet it's still undisturbed, because in a short time, you're back on the journey and you continue. You develop this continuity of mindfulness. This momentary concentration can grow very strong. Now, the next two levels I want to talk about require me to bring up the Jhana Practice, Jhana. Jhana Practice is a concentration practice that was never really emphasized by Joseph and Jack and the people who brought our form of spirit rock, insight meditation back from Asia. Because it's not an end in itself. And it is so very pleasurable and has so much joy that I think the worry was people would get distracted. But some teachers, such as Lee Brasington, who you can investigate at leib.com, Leighb, if you want to learn more about concentration and the Jhana practice, he's a wonderful teacher to go to. And I did a lot of work with Lee. And I was really into the jhanas. As Lee says, a lot of people become entranced with the jhanas, and it took a couple of years for me to realize they were not an end in themselves. That the point of jhana practice, this wonderful concentration practice, is to come back from it with this clear mind and do Vipassana. Because you have a lot of energy for your Vipassana, for your seeing clearly things as they are. So let me talk about the second level of concentration, which is called access concentration, which Susan mentioned earlier. And as you practice concentration, after maybe 15 minutes in the momentary concentration state, we may enter what is known as access concentration. It's also known as neighborhood concentration because it's in the neighborhood of jhana. It's right the access door to jhana. Jhana states, full concentrated states, are states of absorption. They are altered states. And so we'll discuss more about them in a minute. But let's stay with access concentration for now, this doorway state. The mind has reached a very subtle place. There are no more hindrances. You know, I've heard teachers say that the 5 hindrances are what make meditation difficult. You know what the 5 hindrances are? Desire, aversion, sloth and torpor, restlessness, doubt. These things arise. Oh, restlessness. It's been my number one. And they make meditation difficult. But when you get concentrated enough, the hindrances disappear. There may be a white light or some symbol that tells you you're entering access concentration. For me, maybe you've ever had this experience. Your breath gets very shallow, and I breathe very rarely. It's like I don't really need much air. I take a breath every so often, and a small one. And the Tibetans say that the reason you don't need to breathe much is because you're breathing through your skin. I don't know about that, but I like the idea. Ajahn Chah compared access concentration to wandering about inside your own home. Consciousness as it is at ease in the confines of a comfortable area. Attention does not move away from the meditation object. Thinking may arise, but it circles closely around the meditative experience. It doesn't go off on a journey. Light and wispy thoughts may arise, and often they are kind of reflections on the meditation process, what's going on. And even these don't disturb the calm. Attention is moving, but it doesn't drift. A strong fundamental purity of concentration has been achieved. There's still a subtle restlessness that inhibits the depth of stillness required for full concentration, aka absorption. Eventually, the mind becomes fixed on its object and merges with it. And one enters full concentration. This is a blissful state without distraction. It may be characterized by a beautiful light. It has great stillness and peace. You know, all of these concentrated states, even just following your breath and getting into it, all of these states are transformative for us. Every moment that we're awake and aware, we are transforming ourselves, letting go of our armoring, softening, and in states of pure concentration, we experience the most transformative time. There's lots of references to jhana in the Pali Canon, so it's funny that the American Buddhists didn't want to include it for a long time, but now it's been, Lee Brasington was brought in as a Spirit Rock teacher, and peace was kind of made with the jhanas. So now it's something that the Mother Church says is okay for us to do. So I guess those are the 3 levels of concentration I wanted to talk to: momentary concentration, access concentration, and full concentration or absorption. And just there's more and more joy in each one of those. So it's time to kind of I'm going to stop recording.